Po, the goofy, noodle-loving dragon warrior thrown into a world of warlords, dragon hunters, and actual dragons. Hiccup, the brainy Viking chief with a love for innovation and dragon training, finds himself together with Toothless in a mystical land where kung fu masters rule and ancient rivalries shape fate. Both Kung Fu Panda and How to Train Your Dragon are stories about finding inner peace and realizing one's potential despite seemingly impossible odds. They serve as allegories for self-belief and protecting what you love most. In Kung Fu Panda, Po's journey is about embracing his true self and discovering his inner strength. In How to Train Your Dragon, Hiccup's growth is about forging peace through understanding, even when the world demands war. But what would happen if they switched places? Could Po's kung fu skills and boundless optimism stand up against Drago Bloodfist's dragon-killing army? Or would Grimmel's cunning and brutal traps be too much for the dragon warrior? And what about Hiccup? Could he, with only his mind, inventions, and of course Toothless, outmaneuver Tai Lung, a master martial artist hungry for revenge? What about Lord Shen's deadly cannons? Could Hiccup's cleverness outpace Shen's relentless ambition? To find out what would happen in this crossover, we need to lay down a few ground rules. In this hypothetical clash, Po and Hiccup are almost completely on their own. No Team Hiccup, no Furious 5, and definitely no allies swooping in at the last second. Just pure willpower, intelligence, and of course, Toothless. We're also mostly sticking to the first 3 movies, so only moves, canon, and abilities from TV shows, short films, or spin-offs when necessary. And no Chameleon from Kung Fu Panda 4. We all hate him, don't we? Now that the stages are set, let's start by breaking down Po's abilities and what makes him a formidable warrior. In this crossover, Po has mastered every kung fu technique he's learned throughout the first 3 Kung Fu Panda movies. That includes the Wuxi finger hold, but he also gets the 12 impossible moves from the series Legends of Awesomeness. It will become clear later why Po needs these. But besides those moves, I think that what made Po as dangerous as he is was always his unpredictable fighting style. I mean, who uses his belly to fight? Like, ever. His improvisation in battle combined with his resilience and unwavering belief in himself makes him a difficult opponent to predict. He has always been goofy and lighthearted, but underestimate him at your own risk. To find out if his opponents would underestimate him, let's see which dragon the Dragon Warrior is up against first. The Red Death is a walking apocalypse, a living natural disaster that doesn't just crush its enemies, it dominates entire ecosystems. One blast from his breath can obliterate an entire fleet of Viking ships. His flames are so intense they create massive pyroclastic flows, resembling the aftermath of volcanic eruption. Additionally, his thick scales, horns, and the coral-like frill covering his entire body makes him nearly indestructible. This dragon has been shown to smash through cliffs and mountains with ease. Here's where things get even more interesting. The Red Death is also a tyrant. This creature has the ability to control smaller dragons through fear and mind control, much like a queen bee commanding her hive. Even worse, the Red Death's 6 piercing eyes can shatter a dragon's will with a single stare. He's a creature of pure destruction who doesn't need allies. He bends nature itself to its will, proving to be a great, if not impossible, challenge for Po. But what about a man who thrives on domination, using fear and power to conquer both dragons and men? That man is Drago Bloodfist, a true warlord, a man who only sees dragons as weapons to be conquered, enslaved, and controlled. He's also a Viking through and through. He's faced dragons head-on without flinching. He's fought wars, and he's taken down warriors like Stoic the Vast, a literal Viking legend. He even defeated Valka, a highly skilled dragon rider. This is a man who, despite missing an arm, can hold his own against the strongest warriors of Berk. Drago doesn't fight unless he has to. He prefers to let his army and dragons do the dirty work. But when he does fight, he fights like a maniac with his bullhook, using it to strike, control, and intimidate. And of course, he has the Wildebeest, an alpha dragon capable of mind-controlling other dragons, giving Drago an unfair advantage. One swing of his bullhook and he can summon his entire dragon army to do his bidding. And that's merely the second opponent Poe is facing. If Drago Bloodfist was the Hurricane, storming in with overwhelming power and chaos, Grimmel the Grizzly is the Scalpel, a quiet, deliberate force of precision. He isn't the kind of villain who charges headfirst into battle. He's a patient predator lurking in the shadows, waiting for his prey to make a mistake. With his venom-tipped crossbow and a pack of death grippers at his command, Grimmel is all about precision and control. A calculated, methodical, and downright terrifying warlord. He's the ultimate dragon hunter, someone who doesn't just kill dragons, he obliterates the very idea of human-dragon coexistence. This man strategizes like a chess master, carefully predicting and manipulating his opponent's every move. He's savvy, charming, and persuasive, using a gentlemanly demeanor to disarm people before striking with ruthless precision. Nothing is accidental with Grimmel. As Eret said,
"He lives for the hunt, to get inside the mind of his prey, to control its every choice. It's all a game to him."
And soon, and in an almost poetic way, he'll be hunting the Dragon Warrior. While Poe is about to face ruthless warlords and deadly dragons, Hiccup and Toothless won't have it any easier. In fact, I have reasons to believe that it'll be even harder for them, but we'll get to that later. In any analysis of Hiccup and Toothless, you can't separate the two, and it's their unmatched bond that makes them a force to be reckoned with. Toothless is the last known Night Fury, and Hiccup is the first Viking to ever befriend a dragon. Together, they revolutionized the world of Berk and became the ultimate team in both dragon training and combat. Toothless is the fastest, smartest, and most agile dragon in the entire How to Train Your Dragon universe. He can dive bomb at sonic speeds, unleash plasma blasts powerful enough to destroy fortresses' towers, and even cloak himself in lightning, making him practically invisible in battle. But perhaps his greatest deed is how similar to humans he is. He literally thinks like us, adapting to changing situations and outsmarting enemies on the fly. This intelligence gives him a strategic edge that most dragons don't have. Hiccup, on the other hand, started as the outcast of Berk, a scrawny Viking kid with more brains than brawn, but over time he became the chief of Berk and a true leader. His greatest strength is his mind, although he's developed impressive combat skills over time. He's an inventor, strategist, and problem solver who constantly thinks outside the box to overcome impossible odds. His creations, like Toothless's prosthetic tail, the flight suit, and Inferno, his multi-purpose dragon blade, showcase his ingenious mind. When you combine Toothless's raw power and intelligence with Hiccup's tactical brilliance and inventions, you get a duo that can handle any threat. They almost feel like they share the same soul. Even without words, they know exactly what the other needs to do during tough situations. But would that be enough to defeat Tai Lung? A warrior trained from a young age by Master Shifu, who poured all of his hopes into the young leopard, molding him into the most skilled warrior the Jade Palace had ever seen. Capable of using nerve attacks, he can immobilize any opponent by targeting their pressure points. His raw strength is also legendary. He smashed through the prison chains that were specifically designed to hold him, took down 1,000 guards at Chorgam prison, and shattered stone pillars with ease. He can lift massive boulders, break through walls, and endure high-impact attacks without flinching. What makes him even more dangerous is his emotional drive. His entire life had been built around a sense of entitlement and betrayal. He believed he was destined to become the Dragon Warrior, only to be rejected by Master Oogway. This rejection fueled his bitterness and rage, turning him into a warrior with nothing to lose. The next opponent takes a completely different approach to domination. He is known as Lord Shen, the calculating and ruthless peacock whose sharp mind is as lethal as his weapons. Lord Shen is a master manipulator, using fear, intimidation, and psychological warfare to maintain control over both his enemies and his own army. Also a brilliant strategist, he single-handedly invented gunpowder-based weaponry, equipping his forces with deadly cannons capable of annihilating entire armies. But don't fool him for a weakling, he is also a formidable martial artist. His marksmanship with throwing knives and cannons is nearly flawless. If Lord Shen was the embodiment of cold calculation and technological warfare, General Kai is the unstoppable force of raw supernatural power. With his mastery of Qi and his army of Jade warriors, he is less of a fighter and more of an unrelenting tidal wave. For Hiccup and Toothless, facing Kai means going up against a foe who can't be outsmarted with gadgets or grounded with precision strikes. It's not just a fight, it's a reckoning. Once a hero alongside Oogway, Kai's obsession with power and control led him to exploit Qi for his own gain, resulting in his banishment to the spirit realm. As a spirit warrior, his fighting skills surpasses almost every kung fu master in history save for Oogway. He's also an expert with dual chainswords, weapons that would take decades for an ordinary warrior to master. This made him arrogant, viewing himself as superior to all other kung fu masters. I mean, yeah, sure. The guy is a literal spirit. He cannot be harmed by traditional kung fu techniques or physical attacks. His immortality in the spirit realm and ability to steal Qi is his ultimate weapon. Every time he defeats a kung fu master, he absorbs their Qi and turns them into Jade warriors under his control, creating a psychic link that allows him to see, hear, and feel everything they do. His Jade warriors are essentially extensions of himself, making it difficult to catch him off guard. The more Qi he absorbs, the stronger he becomes. But he isn't invincible. His spirit-based physiology makes him immune to natural death and non-Qi-based attacks, but Qi-infused strikes can hurt him. And thus, the question arises, can he really be defeated by a man riding a dragon? Now, everything is set. Let's see how Po does with the Red Dragon in the first scenario I can think of. The Red Death is, by every measure, the most dangerous foe Po would ever face. A massive, fire-breathing behemoth with a temperament to match its size. The Panda has faced intimidation tactics before, but this is different. The Red Death's ability to break the spirit of its enemies would be unlike anything Po has ever encountered. For Po, who believes in inner peace, compassion, and freedom, this is an enemy that represents everything he stands against. Think about it. Tai Lung was a test of Po's strength and skill. Lord Shen was a test of Po's emotional resilience. But the Red Death? This is a test of Po's very philosophy of inner peace. On paper, it's not even a fair fight. Po should be toast, literally. From the very first clash, Po's usual tactics seem laughable. There's no over-the-top villain speech, no weak spot to exploit with a clever kung fu move. It's pure primal power. As we've seen from the first season of How to Train Your Dragon, the Red Dragon is able to smash through mountains and rocks with ease. Po will be running away, jumping from one place to another, trying to evade. But as soon as he finds himself separated from the environment, the dragon will clamp its jaws around Po and swallow him, or completely incinerate him with her fire breath. Victory roar? End of story, right? Well, not entirely. Po isn't done. If he can't break the dragon from the outside, maybe he can destroy it from within. Similar to how Hiccup and Toothless threw plasma blasts, Po also has a ranged attack. 2 actually, both learned in the series. The best one for this scenario is the Mongolian Fireball. What Po could do is deliver it perfectly timed inside Red Death's mouth. But I still don't think that's enough. What ultimately killed Red Death was the crash it made into the ground. So the most likely scenario is that Po will be turned into Panda toast, or swallowed whole as it floods its own body with flames, turning its insides into a furnace. Except for one last scenario. That scenario is the elephant, or rather the celestial dragon in the room. If Po replicates his transformation into the spirit dragon, as we saw in Kung Fu Panda 3, the game changes completely. He could do so by performing the Wuxi fingerhold on himself again, just like he did on Kai. But this dragon is humongous, so there is no way to tell if it could also work on a differently sized opponent. For the sake of it, let's say it worked. Po in spirit form would have the upper hand against almost any opponent, including the Red Death. With his chi-infused strikes, enhanced agility, and near-immortal form, he wouldn't just survive the encounter, he'd dominate it effortlessly. And while it's fun to imagine a glowing, chi-powered Po outclassing every opponent in this crossover, we'll leave that transformation out of the equation for future fights, as Po would just be dominating in the spirit realm. But outside of the spirit realm, he'll face a significantly less dangerous opponent. Drago Bloodfist. Here's how I think one scenario would play out. Should Drago unleash his entire dragon army, Po will be against an insurmountable challenge. As we've seen in the movies, Drago could order his dragons to attack continuously, wearing down the panda. Fire would rain from above, and the sheer number of dragons would make it nearly impossible for him to find a way out. This might seem similar to Po's battles against Lord Shen's cannon fire, but there is a twist. Shen's cannons were destructive but predictable. Po could read their movements and redirect them with the power of inner peace. Drago's dragons, however, are dynamic, capable of adjusting their attacks mid-flight, making them far harder to counter. His agility and kung fu skills would help him avoid some initial strikes, but even the Dragon Warrior has limits. He would eventually start to struggle against the overwhelming scale of Drago's assault. Should he try to take down individual dragons or break their formations, Bloodfist's command will still keep them focused and relentless. There is also his Bewilder Beast, who can easily stun or kill him with his ice breath, not even talking about his underwater abilities yet. In this scenario, the sheer number and coordination of Drago's dragons would eventually overwhelm Po. The Dragon Warrior's agility and quick thinking might help him hold out longer than most, but the non-stop assault would eventually wear down his defenses. Drago's dominance here highlights the massive scale and power of his forces, making this a rare battle where Po's solo efforts simply wouldn't be enough. But what if Po faced Drago alone? Come on, do we even have to get into this? A one-on-one fight between Po and Drago would be heavily one-sided in Po's favor. Po's superior combat skills, physical abilities, and strategic prowess would make it a clear and easy victory for the Dragon Warrior. Next in line is Grimmel the Grizzly, the Dragon Hunter going against Po the Dragon Warrior. It's almost poetic. But as poetic as this might seem, unfortunately I have many reasons to believe that much like the previous fight, it will end up one way. Grimmel's approach relies heavily on long-range precision, carefully laid traps, and psychological manipulation. From How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, we've seen how Grimmel uses his venom-tipped crossbows to strike from a distance and control the flow of battle. He also has his death grippers with their venomous stingers and overwhelming coordination to force mistakes. With this, he can use various tactics and strategies to fight Po. Po, while highly skilled, has limited experience facing enemies who use such methodical and indirect tactics. His tendency to engage directly could leave him vulnerable to Grimmel's carefully planned ambushes, much like how Grimmel outmaneuvered Hiccup's forces. However, Grimmel's calculated approach has one key vulnerability: unpredictability. Po's fighting style, which often incorporates improvisation and environmental manipulation, could disrupt Grimmel's control. We've seen Po deflect cannon fire, Kung Fu Panda 2, and turn Shen's advanced weaponry against him through pure ingenuity. Similarly, Po's ability to adapt in chaotic situations could counteract Grimmel's reliance on precision, where Grimmel's darts can be easily disoriented. And the Death Grippers are also an interesting dynamic in the fight. Nerve strikes could incapacitate multiple dragons at once, leveling the playing field against Grimmel's overwhelming numbers. He would need to find a way to get to them first, though. Based on these things, I believe there will be two probable scenarios. Scenario 1, Grimmel wins. If Grimmel keeps Po at a distance and exploits his strategic traps effectively, he could wear down the Dragon Warrior over time. Po's lack of long-range offense would leave him struggling to close the gap, even if he can use the Mongolian Fireball. The sheer number of dragons under Grimmel allows him to maintain control of the battle. In this case, Grimmel's patience and precision would ultimately overwhelm Po. But if Po manages to break through Grimmel's calculated setup using his unpredictability and improvisational combat skills, the fight tilts in his favor. He would need to incapacitate the Death Grippers with nerve strikes, assuming that would work on them, and then get to Grimmel. Grimmel's overconfidence in his planning has been his downfall before the Hidden World, and Po could exploit this by forcing close quarters combat, where his kung fu mastery would shine, giving him a shot at victory. But while Po has proven he can hold his own against some of the fiercest dragons and warlords from Hiccup's world, what happens when Hiccup and Toothless step into the mystical land of kung fu masters? Hiccup and Toothless facing Tai Lung is a battle of brains versus brawn. Tai Lung is a force of nature. His speed, strength, and unrelenting willpower make him a nearly unstoppable adversary. This wouldn't be a straightforward battle. It would be a test of adaptability, resourcefulness, and resilience. Let's break down how this encounter could play out in two possible scenarios. At the start of the fight, I think that Tai Lung wouldn't see Hiccup as a threat. I mean, what could a skinny Viking, someone far beneath his skill level, do? He'd focus his attention on Toothless, seeing the Night Fury as the real danger. And to be honest, he'd be right. But the real question is, could Tai Lung deal with Toothless's ability to fly? As they're flying, Tai Lung could kick the ground and use the debris as a form of long-range attacks. But Hiccup and Toothless, as demonstrated in their battles throughout the series and movies, have consistently shown the ability to swiftly dodge such attacks. Additionally, Hiccup and Toothless have some weapons up their arsenal that Tai Lung hasn't faced before, like smoke bombs and decoys. The combination of the two could create barriers and restrict Tai Lung's movements. Immobilization tactics have proven effective in the past, such as when Tai Lung was imprisoned. However, the security measures there were far more robust. Moreover, Tai Lung's combat prowess after 15 years of immobilization demonstrates that such tactics may not significantly impair his abilities. Therefore, I believe these tactics will have little impact on Tai Lung. What will have an impact is the dive bombing technique, high-velocity projectiles capable of destroying anything in their path. It can be compared to the crossbows fired at Tai Lung during his prison escape. Tai Lung's agility and resourcefulness allowed him to dodge such projectiles and even use them to his advantage in the past. However, Toothless's plasma blasts travel at incredible speeds, comparable to the speed of light. We've witnessed their power numerous times. Tai Lung might be able to dodge them, but he won't be able to dodge the blast radius consistently. The sheer force of the plasma blast stuns Tai Lung, knocking him off his feet, ultimately forcing the leopard to yield. Now, if Tai Lung didn't underestimate Hiccup and the environment were to his advantage, meaning Toothless can't fly, his agility and combat experience could give him a decisive edge. Sure, Toothless still has his plasma blasts, but I don't think that's enough with Tai Lung's agility when they're on the same ground level. Similar to Po against the Death Grippers of Grimmel, the Nerve Strike would either grant him the victory or still have him defeated. What do you think? Will the Nerve Strikes work on dragons and incapacitate them? I would say we all have chi, and this battle is playing out in the Kung Fu Panda universe. Tai Lung wins this scenario in my book. Now, another fight that you might now agree with will be against Shen. And let's be honest, Hiccup versus Lord Shen? Boring. Although he doesn't have martial arts skills like Tai Lung or supernatural powers like Kai, he still beat Thundering Rhino like he was nothing. through the sheer power of his cannons. Now, let's face it, it doesn't make for an epic showdown when you've got a flying Night Fury on your side. Sure, Shen can fly for short periods using his fiery bursts, but it's nothing compared to Toothless's sustained flight and unmatched speed. Shen could send his wolf army and fire a few cannons, but Toothless dodges faster than those things can reload. Hiccup would need to break a sweat to outmaneuver Shen's outdated tech. And psychological warfare? Please. Hiccup's been dealing with dragon hunters, ruthless warlords, and strategists like Grimmel for years. Shen's fear tactics would feel like child's play in comparison. One plasma blast to Shen's main cannon and boom, fight over. So yeah, Hiccup and Toothless versus Lord Shen, not exactly the legendary clash we're hoping for. But then again, if only Hiccup and Shen are to face head-to-head, it's a Shen victory. Sorry folks, but the Kung Fu Warriors showcased again and again that they're just superior in head-to-head combat. But what about General Kai? Oh boy, this would be a nightmare battle. Kai is simply too powerful, and for graphical reasons, we sure don't hope this would ever become real. From the moment they met Kai, they wouldn't view them as threats, rather as resources to be harvested. Toothless wouldn't be enough. As seen before, Kai could use dual chains to both close in the gap and for close-ranged attacks, and even cut through their plasma attacks in the same way he cut through the huge rocks. And when Kai finally lands a blow, it would send Toothless flying. Hiccup, seeing Toothless in danger, could jump in, trying to use smoke bombs, nets, and gadgets to distract Kai. He might even attempt to talk his way out of the fight, hoping to appeal to Kai's sense of honor or morality. But Kai has no interest in words. To him, Hiccup is just another mortal, a weakling who doesn't belong in the realm of warriors. With a single swing of his chain blades, Kai would destroy Hiccup's gadgets. The real turning point would come when Kai decides to finish Toothless, who would be struggling to get back on his feet. All that Hiccup can do is watch as his best friend disappears into jade. The key reason Hiccup and Toothless lose is simple. They're mortal. Kai, as a spirit warrior, operates on a completely different level. He's immune to physical attacks, he can't be killed by conventional means, and he has centuries of experience in combat. Hiccup's greatest strength, his mind, means nothing against someone who exists beyond the physical realm. Toothless's greatest strength, his firepower, means nothing against someone who can absorb and redirect energy. In this fight, Hiccup and Toothless are outmatched in every way. They're clever, resourceful, and brave, but Kai is unstoppable. The fight would end with Hiccup defeated and Toothless transformed into a Jade Warrior, leaving Kai to march forward unstoppable as ever. The battle against General Kai has shown that Hiccup and Toothless, despite their formidable skills and strategies, have their limits. But what would happen if the ultimate dragon trainer came face to face with the Dragon Warrior himself? The first scenario, just like Poe's other battles, would have him victorious, simply because of his wuxi fingerhold and spirit realm capabilities. But we're skipping that again. Let's focus on a real entertaining battle. In close combat, Hiccup's lack of martial arts training leaves him entirely outclassed by Poe, whose superior techniques and raw physicality ensure he can disarm and incapacitate the Viking with ease. His gadgets would make it a lot more interesting, like the Inferno, though hypnotic to dragons, it probably won't pacify Poe. As for Toothless, Night Fury remains agile and powerful. He relies heavily on aerial maneuvers and ranged plasma blasts to dominate. Just like we've seen with Drago's dragons, Poe might be able to use his knowledge of inner peace to redirect these blasts, but I don't think that will work. The projectiles are too powerful. Redirecting a cannonball, that's impressive, but it's still a physical ball Poe is redirecting. Now, using that to counter Drago's dragons is already stretched out a bit, as those fireballs are not anything physical either. But Toothless's plasma blasts? No chance. They are simply too devastating for Poe to compete with. We've seen Poe be resilient before. He can take a lot of hits and jump off of debris, like we've seen in his fight versus Tai Lung. He can also take one direct cannon blast from Shen with a pan in between his body and the cannonball. it still almost took him out. A plasma blast from Toothless is way above that level of power. In the end, Hiccup and Toothless will always win against Po, unless Po can use the Spirit Realm as his trump card. In hand-to-hand combat without Toothless, Po will always win against Hiccup in my opinion. Now, let's break down the ultimate DreamWorks crossover tier list and see where these legendary characters stand. S tier. At the very top, we have Kai and Po. Kai's status as a spirit warrior with his immortality and mastery of Chi makes him practically untouchable. On the other hand, Po, the dragon warrior, reaches godlike levels when tapping into his Chi mastery or transforming into his celestial dragon form. Both characters operate on a level far beyond the physical realm, cementing their positions in the S tier. A tier. Next, we have Drago Bloodfist and Hiccup and Toothless. Drago's overwhelming battlefield tactics, his command over a bewilderbeast, and his army of dragons make him an unstoppable force. Meanwhile, Hiccup and Toothless as a duo bring unparalleled synergy, innovation, and precision. They're unmatched in strategy, but their mortality holds them back from competing with supernatural foes. B tier. In the B tier, we find Grimmel the Grizzly, Lord Shen, and Tai Lung. Grimmel's calculated precision and mind games made him a formidable hunter, but his lack of raw power limits him. Shen, with his deadly cannons and brilliant strategies, commands armies but can't stand up physically to A or S tier opponents. Then there's Tai Lung, whose raw strength and martial arts mastery make him a deadly one-on-one fighter. However, his arrogance and lack of aerial combat keep him grounded in this tier. F tier. Finally, at the bottom, we have Chameleon from Kung Fu Panda 4, cause all my homies hate the chameleon. So, there you have it, my ultimate DreamWorks tier list. Do you agree with the rankings, or do you think I missed something? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let me know where you'd place these iconic characters. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more epic analyses and rankings.